Alrighty, so we're back on more Warframe. We're supposed to be showing off a Yareli build right now, but Barrow's here, so I need to check out what he has. I wasn't sure if I was going to make this video just yet, because I was kind of ready to take a nap, but I have caffeine in me now. I'm good to go. Alright, we'll purchase a loot crate thingamajig. Right, sure, even though I literally just got one from a login booster. Mods, is there anything that I really need? I mean, there's shell shock. I don't really use electricity on shotguns much. There's shotgun ammo mutation. No, don't really need that. Got some wings, already got all these weapons. Katir presence. I mean, it's definitely not bad emo, but like, I mean, it's only credits actually, so sure. Got the Shugatra, got the mask, the Sindana, the staff skin, that's kind of whatever. Katir stencil, Katir ephemera. You know, I might as well just go ahead and pick this up. I have the Ducats already, why not? Don't really care for smite mods. I'll probably focus on collecting them later. Posters, Chroma Immortal, Katir, cosmetics, I don't really care for much. Primed counterbalance, I don't really think I need that. Primed ammo chain, no. Another Bane mod, don't really care for that much. And then a Magnus relic. Alright, nothing really too crazy, but if you don't have any of these weapons, definitely pick them up. Besides that, for the mods that you should probably get, maybe go ahead and get the Vermilion Storm. I mean, you can definitely live without Prime Rubido Line Barrel because it's arc gun. Yeah. Nothing really too crazy this week. Alright, now let's go into the simulacrum. I was trying to think about what to do for today, but well, last night I actually spent like a good hour or two in the simulacrum, of course. I spent many hours in here just messing around with a new Yareli build that I came up with. I was trying to think about what other Yareli builds that I could make, because for the most part I had Neutron Star more than Evade came about a week or two, or no, now it was probably like 4 weeks ago that I made this build. But I was kind of wondering just what else can I do really, because the thing with Yareli is that she is heavily focused on basically secondary buffing. That's what I focus on, at least. A lot of it has to do with her passive granting the plus 200% crit chance when you're literally just moving for at least 1.5 seconds. Very simple to proc for sure. So I was wondering what could really play into the secondary weapon buffing. First that came to mind was, well, I mean, Roar was the first one I came up with. Definitely works out pretty well. Aegis precision, I mean Aegis with 2000 shield with 90% damage reduction from Marilena with loyal Marilena so that you don't have to ride her. It works very well. You're very survivable and you got plenty of secondary weapon buffing. And then of course sea snares from Marilena, or you can proc them yourself. And then Neutron Star came up to help proc Hot Shot for increased crit chance. And then also Null Star just grants extra damage reduction, which does stack with the 90%, so you're at about 97.5% damage reduction. And Yareli is not really stat hungry either, so you don't really need a ton of duration, you don't need much efficiency, you don't really need a ton of range, you don't really need a ton of strength, so I could easily just go into duration and it worked completely fine for this build. Energy is not an issue at all. I mean, you get 898 at the max, which is crazy. Got arcane precision for just extra secondary damage, because why not? This is all about secondary buffing. And then I typically run the pistol amp aura. Now I know I'm taking a long time to actually get to the new build. Don't worry, I'm just kind of showing Yareli stuff too while doing this. Then Evade came up, a bit more strength, still got a ton of duration, can run arcane crepuscular and still run precision, because hey, we're going for weak points or headshots, because Evade, we just stay invisible the entire time, works out pretty well. You gotta get the extra crit damage from Crepuscular. And also, if you need an easy headshot, you can just cast Sea Snares and just simply headshot the enemy, of course. Or you can cast Riptide, you're probably pretty likely to get a headshot doing that. But here's the new one, Smite. Now, Smite on its own definitely does sound silly, like why would you use this ability? It has reduced maximum strength, and already Oberon Smite takes a lot of investment. You gotta have like max strength, max range, you gotta have like the radiation shards, you gotta prime the enemy a bit. It's a lot of investment, but we're not using this Smite, we're using Smite Infusion. There are numerous abilities that work like this. There's Smite Infusion, there's Fireball Frenzy, Shock Trooper, Venom Dose. Basically, you just hold the ability and you get that elemental bonus damage for a time duration, usually 40 seconds. And so this build relies on that. Just go a bunch of strength so that we have pretty good radiation bonus and weighting for our weapons. Got some extra duration, don't really need a whole lot, because Marlena doesn't really rely on duration. Sea Snares, you don't really need duration. Riptide, you don't really need duration. Range can just stay neutral to at least make sure that Riptide does have at least some range. Marlena does not need the range. Smite Infusion definitely does not need the range, although it will at least affect allies if you want to buff them as well. And Sea Snares, the base range 30 meters is perfectly fine. And the efficiency, we can kind of dump that because we've got Equilibrium, Prime Flow, and just a ton of energy. And we're not really casting abilities too often. We kind of just cast our 2, cast our 3, and that's it really. Then I'm just running Precision still for extra secondary damage, and still Aegis with primed redirection for just good survivability. Still running Pistol Lamp, and if you want to, you can definitely go for the weak point crit mod, the Worthy Camaraderie. I rather just go with Pistol Lamp because I don't have to focus on going for weak points then, but this would definitely still be a perfectly fine mod too. And it's the same polarity, so you can easily just swap around no problem. But what really makes this build work out is the newer secondary Irradiate arcane. So normally most secondaries you're probably running Cascadia Flare because it's just the highest damage bonus that's also really easy to proc. You don't have to get any kills, it's just simply on heat status effect plus 12% damage for 10 seconds, stacking up to 480%. This is more than Merciless, which relies on getting a kill. You do get the extra reload speed though, which is pretty nice, and it is a pretty dang good duration as well. It's basically 48 seconds. And then the other popular arcane would be Deadhead, which also lasts for a good while. And you get the extra headshot multiplier and reduced weapon recoil, which is still very nice as well. But probably a little less damage overall unless you're going for headshots, of course. Whereas Flare is an extra 120% damage, and it's just heat status effect. Does not last as long, of course, that's kind of the weakness, but it's just heat status effect. And it doesn't even have to be a weapon heat status effect. It can just be from companions or abilities, whatever. But Irradiate is a more unique one. On hitting enemies afflicted by 10 stacks of radiation, you deal 180% of the hit damage to enemies within 7 meters. So basically you get kind of an AoE effect. Now before, this was kind of problematic because you need to have radiation somehow. And just to show one of my weapon builds that actually does use Irradiate without Smite, I have this Furious. Now this is the arcane. It's extra status chance, crit damage, crit chance. But as you can see, I'm having to run accelerated isotope to get the radiation because, well, I still kind of want my heat because heat is just very nice. It's like a good armor strip. It does pretty good damage if you get a lot of stacks. And then I still need viral because that just increases the damage of any other damage really. Viral is just very helpful. So it's like hard to just kind of fit radiation on here outside of accelerated isotope. This is a pretty decent mod. You get extra radiation and you get extra fire rate. That's definitely nice. But this is one of few weapons that I feel like can actually make good use of this build because it has such a high status chance. Like you're seeing right now in the incarnate form, 178% status chance. And well, with my current weighting, that still is just a 22% chance for radiation to proc, which is kind of low because we have to get to 10 stacks of this. Now I definitely could make it a little bit weighted better if I take off primed heated charge and then say I could either throw on Augur Pact or Hornet Strike. My polarity does not match this to be able to put on Hornet Strike. I would probably put on an Omniforma to make this fit, but instead I can just go with Augur Pact. I've done the testing. It's really hard to test this because there's just so many numbers going on. But it kind of seems like Augur Pact and primed heated charge are about similar. With Augur Pact, you got a little bit more radiation chance because you see now we're at 35% chance for radiation, but the damage I think is a little bit lower than primed heated charge. Well, primed heated charge is higher damage, but takes a little bit more build up to actually get the 10 radiation stacks. And I've tried this pretty similar build to other secondary weapons, but it's just kind of hard to get going because other weapons have multiple other status effects. It's looking a little bit more like the base form of this weapon, where we only have 137% status chance, which is still very good, but if you look at the weighting, only 24% chance for irradiation, which typically we have on the primed heated charge mod, which in that case makes it down to 16% chance, which is technically a little bit higher because of multi-shot, but that does make it pretty dang difficult to actually get secondary irradiate to proc. Definitely does work though if you want to just like take off lethal torrent and go with accelerated isotope instead of this furious mod you would probably have on the galvanized shot mod, but it's just a bit tough to work with. I mean, it definitely does work very well in this case, especially with Yareli, because Yareli does secondary weapon buffing things, so no smite infusion going on. Just shooting the enemy. It does, like you saw that first kill, we literally did not even get to proc secondary irradiate, but that second kill we got to proc it, and at like base form it works pretty well. You can see though enemies take a lot of damage from the heat status effect, which is why I want to run the primed heated charge, because that tick damage is pretty high. I mean, you saw it was ticking for 135k, and I'll throw on some Scaldra Dedicants because that really lets me build up irradiate, but like right there, only 2000 tick damage. If I just keep on trying to proc irradiate a little bit more, you see these status effects apply to the enemies as well through irradiate, which is why it's important to run viral and heat, because if you don't run viral and heat, then that damage from the irradiate is just going to be very low. But of course that was a non-incarnate form. If I run the furious incarnate form with secondary irradiate, I mean, it's going to be a little bit hard to proc it, but when it does pretty substantial damage right here. And this is not even me getting to quite fully build it up because the enemies just die too fast before I can even proc irradiate usually. I mean, like that does pretty dang well. And this is not even the full potential because we're not running smite infusion yet. This is just a build that works on any frame. If I go back to my flare build, which this is how it normally works, but instead I replace flare with irradiate because I'm on smite infusion. If I decide to proc smite infusion, you'll see with our base form weapon we are able to proc the 10 stacks of radiation pretty easily, and again doing decent damage to nearby enemies. That's without it being fully built up again. If I do, you know, a little bit more, yeah, it's starting to go a bit higher now. You can see it's taking for like 49,000 over there. Let me just shoot at this line of enemies and see how it's looking then. Yeah, I see a 78,000, 52,000, pretty decent. And we're just proccing irradiate a lot more often because of our chances. Our weighting, I think, is a little bit better. I think that's what it is, because we have 258% extra radiation damage basically. And now with the incarnate form, if I just shoot at a line of enemies, you see a lot of them die. 146,000 tick damage. I did not even shoot like the second line of enemies, they just died from irradiate. And so shooting at this line, see what it does. Yeah, they're all gone. 250,000, nice. And even against tougher enemies, like let's throw on Scaldra just Dedicants, we'll do the Eximus afterwards. Again, just proc smite infusion. We can see they all have overguard and they're pretty tanky enemies generally, but smite infusion again just takes care of that. We're seeing a million tick, 476,000. It's a lot of damage. You're seeing all the red too from Yareli. I mean, again, this line died without me even shooting them at all. Now, of course, this is Furious. Furious is a very good weapon, and I have this insane ribbon on it, but it doesn't have to be just Furious. I was running dual Toxicist earlier. You can see this is a build we have. Pretty typical stuff. Dual Toxicist is, of course, like a top 5 incarnate probably, but normally against Scaldra Dedicants they still are pretty tanky, right? So if I just proc this up, go for incarnate and then smite infusion, now we do have the extra ricochet damage, but again that just took them out, no problem at all. If I shoot at this line of enemies right here, yeah, That took care of them, no problem. What about if I decide to run something like Nucor, which, you know, does kind of have AoE damage already. It chains the nearby enemies, but I can choose to run secondary Irradiate, not having to change the build at all. And I mean, it still does kind of silly stuff. I mean, like, yeah, this still works completely fine. Kuva Nucor is a pretty popular weapon. I still think one of the most popular, actually. And yeah, just mowed through those enemies like nobody's business. And this is a weapon with like a base 7% crit chance. Like, that is crazy. Probably change back my arcane before I move on to something else. What's something else that I have that I can try out? Sickris. Let's take a look at Sickris. Some people call it the budget dual toxicist. I think it has kind of a pro over the dual toxicist in that the base form feels a lot better, but we'll see here. Irradiate still running evolution 4, Wise Man's Regard, which is really the only thing that matters. I mean, base damage increase to enemies below half health, like, yeah, but Sickris pretty nice. If I just burst at this enemy to charge it up, go Smite Infusion again, and just shoot at this line of enemies, it will take care of all of them. And you see the tick damage is going pretty crazy. And I can shoot at this line as well. It will probably kill most of the enemies. Yep, this one's going to die here in a moment. There we are. Really simple stuff. What about something like Bronco Prime? This is a little bit of like a weaker weapon. I don't have it fully modded out. I think I just need one more format for Prime Target Cracker. I could put it on right now. I just don't really care to. I don't use this weapon too much, but let's see how it is with even one mod missing. Again, gotta charge it up as usual. Takes a little bit more time to charge up, but get it procced and then Smite Infusion again, and we can just shoot the enemies. They'll still take AoE damage, not just from the ricochet rounds, but also just from Irradiate. And yeah, I mean, it does pretty well. And we're proccing Irradiate on the other enemies as well. I think, I'm not actually sure if Irradiate can chain react like that. Like, if I damage this guy and this guy gets a 10 radiation stacks, does that also proc Irradiate? That's actually a good question. I would have to look at the Warframe wiki for that. I would kind of think not, because otherwise I would probably damage this guy and this guy all the way over here would take damage when that's just not happening. But they do take damage in a good range. Like, I shot this guy and this guy over here took damage. That's about 10 meters actually, not 7. And 7 meters for an AoE is pretty good. That is this far. I know that's not the greatest representation of it, but 7 meters, it's a little bit more than you think, especially for a radius. And this was just Bronco Prime. It doesn't even have all 8 mods equipped. What happens if I use Codapox? Actually, I've wanted Codapox to be pretty good. It does have base radiation, actually, funny enough, for my valence bonus, that is. But I've tried Codapox, I just don't really like it too much. It just does not have a ton of ammo, does not do a ton of damage. I don't think the range is that good either. But let's see how it is with a secondary Irradiate. Does it do much? And also Yareli buffing, of course. Let's see, just throw it a few times at these enemies. Yeah, still not the most damage. I mean, again, these dedicants are pretty tough, but let's hear. Yeah, I mean, it's not exactly doing a whole lot, but it is doing a little bit more. That is for sure. I think this might actually make this weapon a little bit more usable, I would say. Let's hear. These are dedicants. What would happen if I went with the just corrupted heavy gunners again? Proc Smite Infusion and just throw it around. Does it do like a little bit better now? I think so. I mean, definitely better than without Irradiate, but Codapox is still just kind of a struggling weapon, to be honest. What, I get 48 shots total? Yeah. If Codapox just had more ammo, maybe I would like it a bit more, but it just does not. Let's hear, what is something else I can try really quickly? Dual Coda Torpsica. Sure, it's a non-incarnate, does not have any sort of ricochet damage. I just have a valence bonus of impact. Let's see what Yareli Irradiate can do with this. And I guess I'll throw on the Scoudra Dedicants again. I've got to clear this, that's what it is. So what does Smite Infusion do against these guys? Again, we see it's doing extra damage to the other enemies. Pretty decent too. It's like 53,000 for the orange. But then we get the tick damage from heat status effects. I saw 76,000 for a yellow crit. And as we get kills, it starts to just do a little bit better. I think that mainly has to do with the passive. But also we're getting like galvanized shot procced. And yeah, it does pretty well. Like that was looking nice right there actually after we got a kill and just got the weapon rolling. Like this is just a dual wield fully auto weapon. It's not even an incarnate. Still it's a coda weapon though, but I mean that's pretty nice. And I could definitely go higher by getting more kills because I don't have all of my Archon shards procced. Because I have 3 orange shards with secondary crit chance and then just a shield capacity and a health Archon shard. Because again, Yareli doesn't really need stats. So, but yeah, this build I've been really liking it. I definitely could take off Aegis and go with something else. I could go with, if you're wondering about other secondary buffers, there is Arcane Arachne. If I type in pistols, there's Arcane Awakening, kind of whatever. There's Velocity, which is very nice. There's Pistolier for just more ammo efficiency. And I do have on Furex Wraith just for the Amalgam Furex body count. Get the extra 45% fire rate to weapons. Usually I'll go with Praetos just for the movement buffs, but I've been messing with Furex Wraith on Yareli here recently. And then Aventus Prime. Also, its alternate fire grants increased fire rate, ammo maximum, reload speed. It's very nice. Lasts for 40 seconds as well. And then I did not even have on Poggy because otherwise he would have been doing his damage as well, but this is my Poggy. Does pretty well for energy generation with Synth Deconstruct and Duplex Bond combined with Synergized Prospectus to just proc all the enemies, make them primed. Here's the Akatenai run, pretty standard stuff probably. And of course he has reinforced bond for extra fire rate. If you want to, you can definitely find a companion to run with tenacious bond for extra crit damage. I just like Poggy too much. But in terms of other Yareli builds that could potentially be done, you would definitely have a shock trooper build so that you can run conjunction voltage. You get a little bit more multi-shot. Is it better than Cascadia Flare? Probably not. And then you can also run Pillage for Cascadia Overcharge. Now this is additive crit chance, I believe, but still is more crit chance. Definitely pretty fun with Yareli, I bet. And then just nothing in specific, you can also run secondary Outburst. If you want to do some crescendo setups, you can just get a ton of extra crit chance and crit damage. Probably just run the Vazarin Focus School because that's just probably the easiest for getting finishers. But crescendo, you can definitely still just run Furex Wraith. Definitely would take a lot of setup, but hey, it can be done. But I've really been enjoying this build so far. Irradiate has been a lot of fun. Basically, it gives all of your secondary weapons AoEs, which is very nice. It just is pretty hard to build into unless you're doing Smite Infusion stuff. But anyway, I think that's about all I got to talk about for now. Just wanted to show off this new Yareli build that I came up with. I'm sure someone else has done it before, but it's fun. I've been really enjoying Yareli. She's definitely in my top 3 favorite frames to play with. Probably Wisp, Saren, and Yareli are my top 3 favorites. I used to run Mesa a lot, but I kind of just got tired of not using my weapons. But anyway, I'll see you guys in whatever I do next. Hope you enjoyed.